Legislature meetings, so I'm going to upload my agenda. Well, now I'm going to make notes, and then all the things get scanned in, put right in here, so I don't, and I can search for yeah, it's I don't know if it's an Apple, what is it? It's great.
I'm Sarah Wizard. I was close to my and I'd like to welcome everybody here today, especially our panelists for coming and making time in their schedules. We appreciate it. We also want to say thank you to the Tompkins County Public Library for hosting us in this absolutely wonderful space. We want to say a big thank you to the Community Foundation as well as the Tompkins Chamber for co-organizing this with Ithaca Board of Realtors. This event is part of the Tompkins Chamber's Government and Community Affairs Roundtable Series. We'd also like to thank their roundtable sponsors, Borg Warner, M&T Bank, and Rasa Spa. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to George Ferrari, who is our MC today.
Great. Thank you so much, and thanks for being with us. I'm going to wander about a little bit in front of you, so I'm going to apologize to the panel that you're going to see my back sometimes.
It's your best side.
It's my best side. Well, thank you for the feedback that I got. So we're in this space thanks to the library. We're also using amplified sound, but as someone myself who uses hearing aids, if you can't hear us, you can let us know. Someone taught me this recently. This is a bunny, right, with 2 ears, and you can just sort of make this sign, and that's meaning we need to speak up a little bit, because some of you are using mics and some of you are, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. There's also restrooms right out this door to the right, and I wanted to ask if there's anyone here who is working in media, if you could identify yourself and say what outlet that you're working with. Yes, right here.
JT Stone with Tompkins Weekly.
Tompkins Weekly.
I'm Aurora Berry. I'm with WSKG.
WSKG.
Philip Odell with Ithaca Times.
Ithaca Times.
Jimmy Jordan, Ithaca Voice.
Ithaca Voice. This is fantastic. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for covering local. So we have a lot of folks here engaged in public service, and we're going to encourage you to make your comments relatively quickly and move along as much as possible. We have one candidate who is not able to be here, but he has provided written responses, and that's James Perkins from District 8. I'll be reading some of his responses. So what I'd like to do is have you start by introducing yourselves and what district you're representing. I live in District 1. So we're going to start with District 1.
Can you all hear me? Yes. I'm Travis Brooks. The last 3.5 years, maybe a little more, I represented District 1. And I am running again for my second term.
And if you could indicate, not everyone knows the districts by numbers, so if you can indicate where each district is.
So right now, it's the flats in West Hill. So the north side, the south side of town, in West Hill. When you go to vote in November, it'll be West Hill going up towards Trumansburg. It'll be the north side up until Cascadilla, and it kind of splits from Cascadilla to Green, and it picks up again with the south side from Green to the other side.
So in general, I think it's useful that people understand that some of these things have changed a little bit. I used to be in District 2. I have not moved. I'm in the same house. Ronnie's not here yet. Iris, go to Iris.
Hi, I'm Iris Hackman. I'm in District 3, which aligns with City Ward 3, so that's South Hill and Bell Sherman. This will be my first term. I'm running unopposed in general.
We have 3 races that have multiple candidates. All the other races are unopposed.
Hi, I'm Adam Vincent. I'm running to represent District 4, which is College Town and parts of Cornell University. The areas of College Town specifically go all the way down to Stewart Avenue and North Quarry Street.
Thanks. Judith.
Hi, I'm Judith Hubbard. I'm running to represent District 5, which is the same as Ward 5, plus up a little bit on East Shore Drive. So that is from Lynn Street up the hill, Cascadilla Heights, Cornell Heights, and Renwick Heights areas.
Thank you. Sean.
Good afternoon. My name is Shauna Black, and previously in my other 2 terms, I was serving District 11, which was Northeast, Forest Home, and a little bit of South Hill. This time around, I'm going to be the representative, hopefully, for District 6, and that will be part of Northeast and all of Cayuga Heights.
Great.
Hi, yes. For almost 8 years now, I've represented District 10, which was Renwick Heights, the villages of Cayuga Heights, and Lansing. So now I'm in District 7, and that will be the village of Lansing, a bit of the southern part of the town, the cigarette streets, down the east side of Warren Road, and some of Forest Hill. And I don't know if this is a contested race or not. I am not on the ballot. I'm a write-in candidate. John Dennis has suspended his campaign, but he's still on the ballot, so hello. This is easy.
So pay attention, understand what the options are when you go to vote, when you go to register. Some of these districts have been remapped a little bit, right?
Yes, very
So
much.
District 8 has contested the election. James Perkins is one of the candidates who cannot be here. And Mike Ziegler.
Hi, my name is Mike Sigler. I'm the representative of District 6 right now. That's changing over to District 8. And basically, it's everything north of Water Wagon Road. The Water Wagon now splits it. And it runs down Warren Road, so just north of the airport. And to one side of Warren Road, so Village Solars and all of that is within it. And then it's almost the whole town of Lansing. And I've done that for, like I said, 15 years, and would like to do it again.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually good morning, right?
Oh, no.
Hey, I'm right. Good afternoon, everyone. Dan Wakeman. I live in the village of Dryden, and I'm running for District 10, which is the eastern half of the town of Dryden, including the villages of Dryden and Freeville. So I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. Tom.
Well, I'm Tom Corey, and I also live in the village of Dryden, and I'm the full news candidate for District 10, which used to be 14, represented by Mike Lane. And it's basically the northeast portion of Tompkins County. We have the town of Virgil and Portland County. So we're 30 minutes from downtown Ithaca, almost another county. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg Mezzi, I'm the current representative for District 13, which is the western portion of Dryden, seeking election in District 11, which is also the western portion of Dryden. So that's Varna, Etna, Ellis Hollow, Bethel Grove, that area.
Great, thanks for being here. John.
Hi, I'm John Hunt. I'm running in District 12, which is a newly drawn district. This is my first time running. There are 2 polling places in District 12. One is at the Senior Living or East Hill Plaza, and the other is at Longview. So the District runs from 96B over to East Hill Plaza and south of the city to the north edge of Danby. I just want to point out that if you look up your address and you live west of 6 Mile Creek in that district, you may get the wrong result because previously that section was Shauna's old district, and it comes up with incorrect information. If you're west of the creek, you vote at Longview on the election.
That's why we have meetings like this. It's important to pay attention. Things change. The county board of election develops a source of information and maps and things like that. Great, now we have to get that better. District 14 is a contested race. Michelle and Chrissy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle, and can everybody hear me okay? I don't have a microphone right in front of me. Great. So Christy and I are running. I guess I'm introducing you to. We're excited to be in a competitive election in the county. Our district is West Hill in the town of Ithaca, essentially.
And hello, thank you, Michelle. Hi, Christy Bianconi. I am running for 14. I'm currently in 5. You guys are the old 14. So Amanda Champion, she represents District 12, and that's the majority of our districts. So think Iredell Road, West Hill, running down 96 over 79, a little bit of the city, and then up towards South Hill. So Ithaca College, Longview, the Overlook, Linderman Creek, Eco Village, and a lot of residential housing. That's our district. And I don't know if I should say this, but I'm the Democrat, she's an independent, so people know the difference.
Okay, it's good to know what lines hearing on. Randy Brown is running for re-election in District 15.
Randy Brown, I represent Newfield, about 60% of Enfield. The line's about 79 and going west is the area I represent. Finishing up my first term now and looking forward to the second one.
Great, thank you, Randy. And then Rachel.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Ostlund. I'm running for District 16, which is currently called District 5, so it includes the town of Ulysses, including the village of Trumansburg, and the other portion of Enfield that Randy covered.
Thank you. So we have 3 questions that were, yes? Veronica showed up on my breakfast queue, I'm so sorry. Introduce yourself by name and district.
Hi, yes, I'm so sorry to be late.
That's okay.
My name is Veronica Pillar. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am currently on the legislature representing District 2, and I'm running for re-election to represent a half different District 2, which is in both cases entirely in the city of Ithaca.
And do I remember correctly that the number of seats on the county legislature has changed as well with the redistricting? So we went from what to what?
14 to 16.
14 to 16. I'm still amazed we don't have an odd number of seats. So you have ties sometimes. Okay. So we have 3 questions that you're each going to answer in very short periods of time. And then we have a bunch of questions that you've chosen among a menu of questions. So what I'd like to do, we're going to have someone helping us keeping time. That's Peggy over there. So if you start jumping up and down, that means that we're out of time. And this is not the idea you're going to answer every question totally completely, but it gives you a sense of way of how you want to talk about the issue at the topic. So I think what I'll do is, let's see, where do we want to start? All right, so I live at 327 South Geneva Street. So we'll start with District 3 and go this way. First question, just out of, a random choice.
Okay, congratulations, Iris.
Giving you a little, yes, we're not going to start either with 1 or with 16. Okay, here's your first question. Many Tompkins County residents have seen increases in their property taxes over the last few years. The county assessment office has stated that they will be freezing values until 2026. But the tax levy amount remains in question. What do you propose the county can do to generate revenue without putting additional burdens on property owners? Start with Iris and go this way.
I just want to say I grew up on the 301 South Johnson Street. So.
South Geneva's great.
It's great, but it's not in my district. So I think this is a challenge. The way the question is phrased, it's not about how to sort of reallocate the pie. The question is how to make the pie bigger.
More pie.
Right. So, I mean, we'd all like to make the pie bigger, and I think it's a question of what policies and practices we can implement. So, I mean, certainly, I grew up here, as I said. I remember when the Commons was a really vibrant space. Every storefront was full and really busy, and I think that's a missed opportunity, both for attracting tourism, but also increasing our sales tax revenue. I understand that's an important source of revenue for the county and the city as well. So I think, looking at ways that we can try to bring in more small businesses, make it a more inviting space, more appealing. And we certainly are getting a lot of tourism. I don't know how many folks were at the Apple Harvest Festival this weekend, but I've literally never seen a festival more crowded than I saw it on Saturday, which was great. So I think we're getting a lot of buzz. We were ranked one of the best towns to visit in the country. So I think, we should capitalize on that and try to ensure that folks are coming in and have places to spend their money.
Thank you very much. Adam.
So I agree that I think a big way that we can solve this issue overall is to try and increase, the supply of housing, have just more revenue that we can collect. But I've sort of been focusing, on more marginal ways that we can increase revenue collection in general. I'm running to represent a district that's primarily college students. They like to have fun. And so I guess something that's been talked about a lot when I've been knocking on doors is trying to improve the nightlife scene here. That's a way to collect sales tax revenue. I've been working very closely with a common council candidate in my board, Robin Trumbull. We have a proposal that would go towards the county called Tompkins till 2 to move the closing time of bars from 1 to 2. We think it's a safety issue. It could help also improve generate some revenue. There's also a proposal that's gone forth to the council or legislature before, and it's a little controversial that I'm somewhat interested in. It is the proposed sort of resolution to basically have evictions of stores that are not licensed to sell marijuana. It would help increase revenue, I think, by getting people to go to stores that are actually licensed. I think that there's some flaws in the current proposal, just based on sort of enforcement mechanism. But I think overall it could be very useful if we could rework that.
Thank you. So I'm a resident of the city of Ithaca, and I am keenly aware of how much people are struggling with property taxes. I hear about it from all the people who answer the door. But it is not true that everybody is facing the same increases in property taxes. The latest budget document from the city showed that the average home over the last 5 years had an increased city property tax bill that went up 61.5%, and the average big box store went up only 3% over the same time period. So I think it might be a mistake to focus only on increasing the pie, but also thinking about how it's been redistributed over the last 5 years, and how we can redistribute back to a more balanced system where big business is paying their fair share, and it's not just all riding on the shoulders of local property owners.
Thank you. We'll go to Sean next.
Thanks so much. I think what we need to do in Tompkins County is diversify. And what we've done year after year is we put all of our cards in academia as well as tourism. And so whenever we have something like the pandemic that really throws us for a whirlwind, the two things that we have actually invested in, unfortunately, don't come through for us. I think with what we're seeing on a federal level, as far as situations with the local university, we realize that it makes sense to have different types of businesses in our county. So for one, I would propose that we actually reach out to tech organizations as well as industrial, so that they can come here to Tompkins County and call Tompkins.
We have some conversations or talking going on in the audience. If we can keep that down, there will be time to ask questions. With that, Deborah?
Thank you. Taxes in Ithaca and Tompkins County are high, in part because our property owners are subsidizing a huge educational institution. Over 40% of the property value in this county is tax exempt, and $3.8 billion worth of that property belongs to Cornell. Cornell-owned property represents about 60% of the assessed value in the city and 40% in ICSD and in Tompkins County. Despite negotiated agreements to pay $4 million a year to the city and $425,000 a year to the town of Ithaca, Cornell pays nothing in lieu of taxes to Tompkins County. State law exempts university and college profit centers like bookstores, dining and residence halls, and the Statler Hotel from property taxes. Tompkins County should lead an effort to get the state to reconsider that law. Bookstores, dining halls, dormitories, and on-campus hotels should be subject to property tax, just like our off-campus stores, hotels, and restaurants. Meanwhile, we need to try to get Cornell to the table to negotiate a pilot arrangement with Tompkins County.
Thank you. Before I call you, Mike, I'll just share with the folks the written response from James Perkins, who's also running in District 8. He writes, I would increase focus on tourism. With more people come to the area, this would increase sales tax that would go to the county, therefore decreasing the burden on taxpayers in the county.
Well, not to reiterate what Shauna said, but I mean, tourism is terrific. I love when people come and visit us here in Tompkins County, but let's just take the example of the Apple Festival. I mean, it's great. People come in, they go and they tour our commons. But the question then remains, are they going to the stores? Are they going into Benjamin Peters? Are they going into school? These two businesses that have really kept paying the bills for the last 30, 40 years. So we need to really kind of focus on, A, the businesses that are here. How is Borg Warner doing? I mean, that should be a discussion we're having all the time. And how are the other businesses, and then how do we attract these businesses? Because it's the jobs that, you know, make our communities. It's the people that are working at those jobs that are your volunteer firefighters, they're your coaches. Those are the folks that are making the whole community go. So while I appreciate tourism, and I think it does bring in sales tax dollars, it's those people who are paying the property taxes. And those should be our focus all the time. If you're not shrinking, or if you're not, if you're just static, you're not growing, you're shrinking. The tax levy was brought up in the question. The tax levy is almost always going to go up because we have contracted salaries. The state is not backing off on its increases. They are not sending the money down to us. So your tax levy is almost invariably going to go up unless you make massive cuts. So that's what we're looking at right now. Where can we make some cuts? Maybe not massive cuts, but to bring that tax levy down.
Thanks, Dan.
As has been said already here, there are various plans to increase the tax base. Anything that the county can do to encourage economic development is a good thing. We want to have businesses that are growing and increasing their footprint, both in terms of their business and in terms of their property value. Similarly, if we desperately need housing in the county, so any housing development that we can foster is also very beneficial. So one of the things in my district, TC3 is selling one of its apartments, and that coming into a private ownership should increase both housing and also go up in value, so that's going to increase the tax base there a little bit, I would expect. The Village of Dryden has applied for and received a $4.5 million grant to revitalize its downtown. With that work, we expect to have some additional flair and some additional business work there going on. So these kinds of things are going to help us across the board. As long as I'm thinking of my district specifically, TC3 has a Reconnect program that I'm a big fan of. Better jobs, more money, more spend.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to turn the question on its head, since no one else has. I believe that right now the county probably is spending more money than it needs to, and it doesn't need more resources. I think we should enforce the law of holes. The law of holes, first law is when you're in a hole, stop digging. And when you stop digging, you're still in a hole. So Tompkins County has increased their employee base from about 600 in the mid-90s to around 800 today. I think that probably the county is really has increased significantly more than the population has. One of the first things that I would do is that I would basically put on hold the project to build the new Center for Government. Center for Government is a $50 million, 50,000 square foot building. Very expensive building. You can find that space almost any place in Tompkins County for half the cost, either by buying or leasing. At the centroid population, which is basically at the corners of Trip Hammer and Route 13 up in Lansing. I think that this building, although the land acquisition was not necessarily a bad idea, the construction of the building really should be put on hold. And as Debbie said, I think that Cornell needs to become a true partner in the activities of Tompkins County. They represent, between Tompkins County and Ithaca College, they represent 30% of the population of Tompkins County.
Okay, we have a little bit of disturbance in the audience, so I'm going to ask the
I
lady with
just
the
have a
camera on to
request.
turn that off.
This is a public event, that is correct, but we do not have permission from everyone in this room to be filmed publicly. So I think it's fine to
public library.
film. That's correct, but it is.
No, everybody registered to be here. I had to register to be here, so.
You are making it hard for us to hear the candidates.
Yeah, when they're talking, it's very.
Yes, you are. You're talking.
I wasn't talking at all. You're talking. Okay? He was talking. I was not.
I find her a distraction.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to postpone the panel
Hey, you don't want
until
Arabs here?
you're able to
La
sit
ilaha
down.
illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. You guys are all live on my
Go to
YouTube
hell.
channel. La ilaha illallah.
What you said What you said was very rude.
So I appreciate your forbearance there, and we are in a public setting, but we do want to be able to hear what candidates are saying. We do want to be able to have a conversation. There will be time for questions, and we are streaming. So I did find that quite disturbing. I appreciate you being able to hang with us and we're able to kind of resolve that. Okay, Greg Mezzi.
That was tough to follow.
Back on track, Greg.
Yeah, the question again, so we talk a lot about diversity in our tax base, which I think is important, but that requires a significant investment in our infrastructure to attract businesses and support economic development. We need to have sites available with infrastructure ready to build because it's a very competitive market out there. So until we start to get creative with our economic development agencies and support from the county and local municipalities, we can talk about diversity of the tax base, but we really need to put action to that before we see the result of that. I agree with Deborah's comments. There are many taxable activities, I believe, at Cornell University, such as when they rent rooms for graduation and reunion. Those, I think, should fall under room tax, and we should be collecting there. So there's a number of different ways, but I think one of the biggest ways is continue to advocate and push back on our state elected officials because of the number of unfunded mandates that come down from the state of New York. We really need to be challenging them to do better in Albany so that we're not tasked with carrying the burden of Albany's overspending and sort of allocating the burden to the local taxpayer. So you really have to understand it's a very limited funding stream for the county, and there's a very few ways that we can make an impact. And I think one of the biggest ways is continuing to push back on New York State to do better so that we don't have to carry it on our shoulders here in Tompkins County.
There's sales tax and there's property tax. There is no local income tax. I'm not suggesting that you were suggesting that, but there are limited sources of revenue.
So we're having a great 1.5 minute, lots of ideas at the table. The question is primarily about revenue generation, and so I chose to highlight tourism, which is a major input to the revenue of the county. Already a significant contributor to county revenue. So I propose to think about ways to increase tourism. Perhaps initiate special tours based on our many attractions and strengths. We have a wide variety of restaurants in the Ithaca area. Perhaps a culinary tour. I've seen that on other cities' websites. And maybe spice it up a little bit, include meeting some of the chefs that are in the restaurants. Or go back to the kitchen and have a tour. We also have some great museums here. The Science Center, Museum of the Earth, the Johnson Art Museum, the History Center, and others. The state parks already attract many to this area. Unfortunately, the harmful algal blooms in Coyote Lake continue to be a problem. And I'm reviewing the efforts and proposed solutions. And I will attempt to find out how the county can do more to mitigate that issue in our lake, which is already a significant contributor to tourism.
Thank you very much. Michelle.
I want to thank everybody for the context and their comments that have been said so far, particularly Deborah and Greg. I think you helped lay the land a little bit as far as what the impact Cornell has, the state has, and I want to take it even further out to the federal context and acknowledge that our taxpayer dollars at the federal level are being used to fund the U.S. war machine, including the genocide in Palestine. If we lived in a country where a federal government cared about people over profit by using taxpayer dollars to support the people most in need, this question might not even need to be a priority today. In general, my answer to this question specifically is that first thing I would do is want to do some in-depth research for policies and procedures at the county level, the financial policies and procedures that might be helping support affluent lifestyles of the rich with taxpayer dollars. For instance, the fee charged to private jet owners landing at Ithaca Airport. I think this fee should reflect the actual cost of use versus the flat fee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi there, make sure you can hear me. Christy Bianconi, District 14. So I'm going to keep it more local. Quite frankly, one of the reasons I'm running is because I bought a house for the first time 5 years ago, and my property taxes have already gone up over 20%. And so I know that's hurting me, it's hurting renters, it's hurting seniors, it's hurting everybody in our community. And I think we can all agree that this is not sustainable. So again, like Michelle, I want to thank everybody's thoughts and ideas. They are laying the land, and I want to try to focus on things that haven't already been said, although I completely agree with what Deborah said about the pilot for the county. They already have one for the city, they have one for the town, but guess what? Cornell also owns property outside of those areas in this county. With what Adam said with students, it's really important to understand we need to increase sales tax. That's one of the ways in which we collect money to fund these county services. So we have 35,000 students here locally. Let's partner, get student discount cards, get these kids not spending on the internet, but coming out of their house and spending in the community. So if they can save money, businesses can get more money, we can collect more money, and we can really drive this. Also with a restaurant week, kind of similar to what John was saying, this is something they do in Binghamton for Binghamton University students. They have a restaurant week that really highlights local area business owners and beautiful restaurants. We have such a vibrant restaurant.
It goes fast.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you, everybody.
Again, this is the sort of tapas version of these issues. OBL and entree,
I like the full meal.
Some of it's a little bit. Randy.
Hello, everyone. First of all, the assessments are going to freeze through 2028 for a lot of reasons. I propose, as far as income, I propose additional 1% hotel tax, which is being discussed, and I think that hopefully will come through, and the state will have to approve that and bring about $800,000 more into the county for various things. I also think it's really important that we look at our expenses and look at every department and look at where their budgets are. Are they meeting the revenues that they projected, which last year we did not. And then look harder at expenses. We don't see the expenses of a department till August of the following year. So we have no idea what happened in January 24 until July or August of 25. We need a better understanding, and the county's gotten much better at our finances and improvement. We've only raised taxes a total of 4% in the last 3 years, so I think the legislature's done a really good job of controlling taxes on our level, but now we're in a revenue and expense crunch, so we are today. I think some of the things that we do, we should really look at how we spend our money. There can be a lot of deep conversation about the airport coming up, how much money we're spending there. And then that will determine what our tax rate will be at some point.
So Randy, that's a correction to the information we had. The assessments are going to stay frozen through 2028, not 2026.
That was just acknowledged at a recent meeting.
Okay,
So
so
very recent.
Breaking news right here.
Great. So the question mentions assessment, and I do think that we should make sure residents understand that their assessment in isolation is not what's driving their taxes, but rather the increasing levy results in the increasing tax burden. And when we talk about how we raise money, I really think we should also talk about why we're raising money instead of pushing for just never-ending revenue growth without really looking at the expense side of our county's ledger. We can then center the conversation on whether the local government is living up to its moral obligation as an institution that ensures a high quality of life for all residents, which is determined by how we spend the tax revenue that all of us have worked so hard to generate. So a significant portion of county spending goes towards vital services to vulnerable people in crisis, whether towards emergency sheltering or a variety of social services. However, we really focused on also supporting upstream interventions such as a living wage or targeted guaranteed income programs that keep people out of poverty or allow access to resources to lift themselves out. We're allowing more residents to support themselves and their families while freeing them to become active and generative participants in the local economy. This has the potential to both slow the growing levy and generate more local revenue, both of which would reduce the property tax burden. I also understand that our current model of revenue generation depends on sales tax in addition to property tax. I ran a wedding planning business, and I recognize that supporting tourism and bringing outside people in generates sales tax and hotel room occupancy taxes.
We're at time already. It goes very, very fast. Mr. Rooks.
So I'm excited because you heard answers from the rest of the group that's up here, the new people joining the legislature in January, and there's nothing better than having new ideas and new energy. But there's something that's missing in this conversation, and to me that's affordability. We talk about businesses, we talk about what people can spend money on. It's not affordable to do business in Ithaca. It's not affordable to create a new business between rent or trying to buy property. So how do we deal with that? It's not affordable to rent. As a person that's living here, it's not affordable to buy a home. If your money is stretched so thin to begin with, folks in District 1 and 2, a few other districts have been hit with the flood insurance. Where are they going to spend money? They have to, between $1,600 and $6,000 a year for additional flood insurance. What extra money do they have to go do things? And the other piece is, there is money that comes in, and we have to make decisions on where it gets spent. And I struggle with the idea of funding equally TCAP when rides are being constantly taken away from the community, from people in rural areas to support more rides for Cornell. I do struggle with funding, taking taxpayer money to fund the airport when I hear a lot of conversation about how good it is for business for Cornell. Many of us still travel outside of Ithaca to catch an affordable flight. So I think that Cornell should be picking up more of a burden on those things, and that money should be redistributed.
Thanks, Travis. And we'll wrap this question up. We have 3 questions, and then we have candidate choice questions, and we have questions from you. So we have a lot of ways of getting connected here. But Veronica, when you end up this question for us?
Great, lucky to go last. I agree with a lot of,
Because other people said a lot of the stuff already. I agree with getting more money out of Cornell, like many people said, Deborah and others, addressing the property tax burden distribution, as Judith mentioned, is important. Diversifying our economy, focusing on affordability, as Travis said, and empowering residents to be able to fund their own lives, which is the only way to reduce our spending on like emergency services and emergency social supports. That is not the most efficient or great way of supporting anyone. What I would add in is that I would love Tompkins County to lead a coalition pressuring Albany to tax the rich, genuinely. It's a slogan that can mean a lot of things, but there are various very like specific bills in Albany that would be able to get income out of the disproportionately very wealthy, which, as George has mentioned, we don't really have the levers to do at the local government. So Tompkins County can't do it, but the state can do it, and the state can use that money to fund some of the unfunded mandates. And this isn't a huge coalition push yet, but it could be among not just counties, but all local governments.
As you know, because you've seen the questions, they don't get any easier. So our second question is, how would you balance a living wage for employees while mitigating the financial impact for employers? I asked the gentleman sitting in the front row here if he had a favorite number, and he said we're going to start with District 8. That's how much you highly scientific. We'll go this way.
We're going this way.
Oh, yeah.
So let me start with the county's view on the living wage. We are a living wage employer, as you may know. A lot of concern when the new living wage came out to be over $24, I think over $24.50. Luckily, the impact on the county will not be as great because we were already pretty close to that. So that, I'm very thankful of that. I mean, if people were getting the minimum wage at the county, that would have been like $8 million, but now we're looking at about a $2 million hole. So when it comes to living wage, though, I mean, first we have to look at all the jobs. Does every job in the county need to pay a living wage? Certainly when this is enacted in other countries like Australia and other jobs like that, or other countries like that, the living wage is not the same for every particular job, because some jobs people do view as starter jobs and just get into the workforce and gain training and then move on to the next job. I think one of the keys to getting to the living wage is, frankly, to encourage more development. We do need ready-made sites. Greg and I actually do talk about that a lot, and how do you got to put in water, sewer, things like that, roads. and then you make the site attractive. That's how Micron is going into central New York. They made it site ready. You see that across the country. How do you make things site ready? And if you bring in those kind of jobs into sites that are already prepared, those jobs will be paying a living wage. I mean, it costs a lot to do business in upstate New York, and if there's a company moving up here, then they will be paying a living wage. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. The other candidate in District 8 has written his responses because he couldn't be with us, that's James Perkins. His response to this question is, check with local, state, and federal government for tax incentives or support programs for businesses that commit to fair wages. Another option would be exploring the possibility of forming a partnership between business and local nonprofit organizations. Okay, Deborah.
Thank you. As you probably know, the legislature recently voted to fund a study of the potential impacts of the countywide living wage. So I personally want to wait and see what that study tells us before I commit to supporting it. That said, I find this a kind of an interesting question coming from a business community because we're supposed to be a free market economy, and that kind of means no government intervention or minimal government intervention. So I don't know that you want to invite us in and start down that slope. What the county and its constituent municipalities can and should do is create an environment that makes local businesses more accessible, attractive, and therefore successful. Start by acknowledging that Tompkins County is a largely rural county, and most people cannot walk to downtown. So make parking easier and more affordable. Dedicate more resources to making shopping areas safe, clean, and attractive. And the county's STPB can distribute more hotel taxes to organizations, events, and promotions that encourage people to come downtown. And we can assist our towns and villages outside of the city to obtain grants to develop their town and village centers. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Next, Sean.
Thank you. So just to confirm, this year, the living wage increase is not in our budget. And if the legislature wants to add it, it would be around $1 million to $1.5 million. So that's going to probably be a source of contention over the next few weeks. Veronica Pillar and I were the ones that actually brought forward the living wage study after many years of discussion. And some of the conversations that we've had behind the scenes are our concerns for nonprofits, for healthcare agencies that receive Medicaid, and we know that Medicaid subsidies do not allow for people to be paid what they should be paid in healthcare. The third thing is small businesses, and those are the things that we really worry about and talk about whenever we're talking about increasing to the living wage and having it be a county mandate, more or less. One of the things that we as legislators have to do is talk about balancing the needs of all of the parties involved. I think the other conversation that we're having as well is people that receive entitlements through the county, if they receive a living wage and make more money, will they still be eligible for the benefits that they currently receive, such as Section 8, child daycare subsidy, SNAP benefits, and their health insurance. And so it's a really tricky position for us to be, because while they might make more money, they might lose those entitlements that help them survive.
So just a point of clarification, when you said it's not in the budget, meaning for county employees?
It's not in the recommended budget as our county administrator has presented.
So that could be a change in what current county employees are experiencing now and what it might be. The budget's not done yet, pay attention to the budget cycle. It'll be done somewhere in November, December.
That's right. And the reason why it's $1 million to $1.5 million is because we've seen wage compression, and with the unions, we're trying to make sure that people that were right at the brink of making, $24.75 are making a little bit more than that, so that we're not compressing wages.
I just wanted to make sure people understood that. So keep going this way, now we're in District 5.
Yes, thank you. I think, fundamentally, probably almost everybody in this room believes that if you work full-time, you should be able to support yourself. But the new living wage study had an increase in the living wage of more than 30% over 2 years. Now, I have a friend who owns a business. She used to work at a small business. Now she owns a small business on the Commons, and she told me she doesn't even pay herself a living wage according to the new study. So it's a really difficult position to take. I'd like to add in an extra aspect of difficulty, which is not everybody in the county is supported by wages that come from within the county. All the people who are on fixed incomes, right, who depend on Social Security, if we raise the minimum wage, the living wage, it will increase costs for everybody, and it will especially impact, leave behind those people. So I would like to focus on affordability fundamentally. I've met with the people who produced the living wage study. The drivers of this increasing wage are mostly housing and transit. So if we can rebalance and lower our property tax burden, and if we can provide better public transit or more housing along public transit lines, then we can make the county more affordable and hopefully bring the living wage back to something that businesses can afford to pay.
Thank you,
I completely agree that the biggest way that we can help reduce the effectively high price of the living wage on just regular Tompkins County residents is to make it so that the living wage isn't so high. And the best thing we can do in general is, I think, try to reduce the strain on the TCAT. But I think that we also probably should try and raise. Thank you. I think we probably should try and lead the effort at least to get wages raised in the county. I think if we were to try that, it would have to be staggered over time. I think an immediate raise to the current projections for the living wage of 2042 would be very shocking for our economy. I also think that in general we should invest in jobs training just to make it so that workers are more efficient. That way they don't have to work as many hours and the costs on businesses can be decreased. I'm very proud to have been endorsed by the International Union of Painters and Allied Tradesmen, as well as Construction, Painting, Printing Union, and they invest very heavily in job training for their members, and it works quite well for them.
Thank you. Iris.
Thank you. It's an issue that's close to my heart as a labor lawyer and someone who's worked with low-wage workers. But I've also represented employers, and I understand the tension. And so I think if we look at the question of, this living wage is almost $10 an hour above the minimum wage of the state. That is a huge jump for most lower wage employers. At the same time, more than 23,000 people in the county earn below that living wage. And if you look at the living wage, that's the rate for a single adult with no children, which is not the majority of the people we're talking about. That gives you, about $85 a week for food. Now, I challenge most of us to try to get by on $85 a week for food. So yes, costs are too high, but also wages are too low, and how do we equalize it? So I'm going to talk about the wages side of it because that's my background. This is also not proportionately distributed among racial groups. So of the 47.7% of Tompkins County workers who earn below a living wage, it's 64.3% of Black workers in Tompkins County earn below a living wage. Okay, that's really high. That's almost 2/3. And again, that's this very minimum rate of just if you look at the calculations, and I don't want to get too nitty-gritty, but that gives you rent of $14.89 a month. Which, again, get by on that. So I think we need to value in some of the things that employers are doing. So if we could continue to, if we could value out, for example, some benefits and put that into part of the calculation, I think that would be a way to try to mitigate some of the damage.
Again, there's a lot more information, there's a lot more background, there's a lot more study and data that people use to make these determinations. So I encourage you to stay involved and learn more along those lines as well.
So I believe that everyone getting paid at least a living wage is the correct world to strive for. And I think it's an ethical thing. I think it's, people deserve to be able to live their lives and to thrive. And the people will say the living wage is not enough to thrive, it's enough to live. And so I think that we should be always aiming to have everyone working a job paid a living wage. Now that said, we, the county government or anyone, can't just suddenly change the world to make it be the way we want to be. So while I'd love to see our minimum wage go up, while I do want the county to continue being a living wage employer, I think that it's going to be really important to get some good results from the study that Shauna and others mentioned about, what could it look like to raise the minimum wage countywide. That would be for all the employers in the county, because there's lots of situations that look different, like with Medicaid reimbursement, like with youth employment programs, where maybe the participants actually are getting supported by others. I think a role the county can play is
So I do agree that people getting paid a living wage is important and it's essential. The problem that we have in this county is what is that living wage? And the living wage is based on this number of affordability. And I keep going back to that because doing business, living, thriving in Ithaca is not affordable. It's not easy for people. So we're talking about the living wage number now. And then what is it in 3 years? What is it in 6 years? And if we don't get the affordability issue under control, at what point in time are we paying people $30 an hour? Businesses can't do that. That cost is passed down to the consumer. So the city became a living wage entity years ago, and we were really excited about that. And for years, the city would give the departments the increase in their budget. Well, this year they don't have it to do that, so departments have to find it. And so what that means is departments have to cut funds from other parts of their program, which means staffing, which means programming. So you are going to do less for people. In a city that's growing, you're going to do less for people. In a city where people have more and more needs, they need more and more services, you're going to do less for people. With the current administration that we have nationally, who's doing less for people, we have to do more, and we're going to end up doing less for people.
So our heart tells us certain things about what we'd like to see, our head tells us how those are challenging. I want to thank each one of you for being willing to step up and wrestle with these issues where there are no clear, direct, I'm not going to forget it. I got you. Do a little transition jig. Rachel wants it. Go.
I do want it. So I think implementing a living wage, implementing a living wage could be a really exciting opportunity for the county. The question is framed as if the impact is solely negative for businesses, but there will be financial benefits to employers in paying a living wage. The living wage has been shown to reduce employee turnover and increase productivity. When people have lower wages and need to work multiple jobs, it decreases productivity, increases the chance of missed time at work, and increases the chance of turnover when people are always trying to move to slightly better paying jobs. So every time there is turnover, it's a financial burden to a business. You have to somehow cover the work done by the vacated position. You need to take significant time to recruit, interview, hire, and train a new employee. So even just the implementation of a living wage can save employers money by stabilizing their workforce. In terms of implementation, we could start with the largest employers in the county, which will likely have the easiest time absorbing the cost of the wage increase, which might involve a readjustment of the wage ratio within a company. Initial implementation can also be tied to government spending, so all county employees receive the new living wage, and also any group that receives financial assistance or contracts from the county could be required to pay an employee's living wage as part of that first tier of implementation. And when we move towards smaller businesses adjusting for the wage increase, we could have a short-term position at either the county or their partner agency that can provide financial guidance to businesses, much in the way that CCE provides financial and accounting assistance to farmers to help small businesses really look at their books and see where they can find sustainable ways to absorb the wage increase and find other inefficiencies.
Thank you, Rachel. Randy.
I got a great question. So how do you balance living wage for employees while mitigating the financial impact for employers? And the living wage, for me, isn't really defined. We have a definition that's provided by the entities that we've been doing for many years. I believe the county is looking at its own evaluation of what a true living wage is. And it's obviously different from ROC than it is in the city of Ithaca. But also, it's very interesting. I was looking at the area economic development data, and about 48% of the people who work in Tompkins County don't live here. They commute. So they have transportation costs. A lot of transportation costs are driving your vehicles and all those things. So I think they have to look really at their transportation and how we can reduce those costs for people and how they can make it more efficient for a lot of people. I have a friend who has a business on the Commons, and 2 employees, 7 people are turned over in the last 12 months. So every time they're investing in an employee that for whatever reason doesn't succeed, right? And so I think that's where we should need to help people understand how to build employees, how to foster them to turnover. So expensive. I mean, so you can pay somebody more if they can stay, but you have turnover all the time. It's really a challenge. So I think that's a solution.
Thank you, Randy. What is Steve?
I think it's important to just state that this is in the study phase, as other folks here have already said. It's really hard to do this. I mean, New York State sets the wage, or minimum wage, right? So even if it does go, so even if, you know, studying, you think it's a great idea, there's a lot to determine there. We have a long, hard push. So I think let's just focus on what's actually happening. First and foremost, this is an amazing community we live in. We have the Tompkins County Worker Center. They have a great program. They have a website. You can go and see which employers are certified as living wage employers. If you really want to know, if you really want to make sure you're working for those employers, we need to acknowledge that and celebrate that. And so it's moral imperative, right? We should really say, hey, look at this great work that these employers are doing. As many folks have said, Tompkins County themselves are a living wage employer. As Rachel said, procurements, when we contract, when we decide to hire people and pay them county dollars, let's reward the people who are going to pay a living wage and say, this is what we're doing in this community. But as Travis keeps saying, and I totally agree, this is an issue of affordability. We really need to make sure we're working on making this community more affordable. And this ties to the earlier question, people can't stay here. I have lived here for over 30 years. Do you know how many people I have seen leave? I'm talking about elders, seniors who can't afford to live here, my own parents, friends, creatives, artists, punks. You ever see punks anymore? They can't afford to live here. And this is what makes Ithaca such an, or the Tompkins County such an amazing place.
We're gonna have the Mohawks.
So I'm really interested in this question, whether elected or not. I consider this an invitation to collaborate. I think this is a great question, and everybody's said some really interesting things so far. So I think there's a really great opportunity for collaboration between the Ithaca Democratic Socialists and the Workers Center and the business community to look at what I think Iris was just about to get to, which is that in this picture, the benefits that employers are providing absolutely need to be part of the equation. Because I'll tell you what, I've lived with health insurance, I've lived without health insurance, and there's a big difference in there. If your employer is providing health insurance, the cost of living is drastically different than if not. So I think that employer benefits need to absolutely be part of this equation.
Thank you very much. John?
Probably we're going to be repeating some of the things that other people have said, but on the side of increasing the living wage, workers will be happier, and they might rely less on aid from the county, which would be a benefit to the overall fiscal picture. The state minimum wage is increasing to $17 an hour at the beginning of our term in January. Perhaps in order to get to the living wage above the minimum wage, the increase could be done gradually by various employers. Some people have mentioned larger employers starting to do it, but they need to do it intentionally and stay ahead of the minimum wage. People maybe wouldn't need to apply for SNAP if they're making more money. On the side of the employer's benefits, they should, as others have said, that improves employee retention, less frequent turnover, less training time, less costs. And in general, it could lead to higher quality of workers.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that folks in your positions are wrestling with this question and not just dismissing it out of hand or thinking it's easy to do. You're right there, handling the challenging questions, and I appreciate that you do that.
Right. Yeah, so as a small business owner myself, I wrestle with this on a daily basis. I have about 11 people that trust me with their livelihoods, and I provide them with 90% of their healthcare costs are paid for by my organization. We'd have to wrestle with that, right? We'd have to have tough decisions, so I appreciate bringing up that benefits. It really, I think in my mind, comes down to affordability and how affordable it is to live here. I just touch back on my record, I've voted every year to keep our increase to our tax levy as low as possible, because I think that's important. I also don't think this is the responsibility of county government to mandate this. I think that this falls at a state level, and I think it's also, but more importantly, the responsibility of employers to be a good employer, to weigh the balance between benefits, wage, quality of life, work schedule, all those types of things. There's so much more that goes into this. I also think that it's important for us at the county level, though, to continue to invest in job training, like we have in the Ithaca Area Economic Development Direct to Work Program, Tompkins Build. I see Diane here from the Reuse Center. I think creating a more strong and robust reuse economy could support people not having to spend as much to get the things that they need. So again, it all comes back to how much does it cost to live here? How are we getting people the skills to advance? Because not every job is a $24 an hour job, and I know that's hard for people to hear, but that's the reality of it. So we need to be getting people skills so that they can advance themselves, and employers will take the responsibility to do what's best for their organization.
Everyone has a role to play here in solving this problem, Tom.
What he said.
Okay. Save time.
All right.
I'll just add a little. So I just think that imposing for Tompkins County to impose a special county minimum wage is basically kind of a foolish performative act. Doesn't really have much impact. It would be unfair, and obviously when you increase the minimum wage, it's going to increase the cost of living, and that's the problem that we have in Tompkins County, which everyone has already said. The studies and real-life experience have demonstrated that excessive minimum wages, which have been tried in different parts of the country, drives out existing businesses and makes business formation very difficult. It impacts not only existing businesses, but specifically not-for-profits and businesses that are supported, as other people have already said, by Medicaid. I give an example of the Groton Nursing Home, for instance, a good example of that, where the people that work there in some wonderful facility, it's a not-for-profit basically, are paid based upon the benefits that New York State will pay under Medicaid, and that's not assuming a $25 minimum wage. So we have to be realistic about what we can do. I'm very supportive of people being paid what they should to be able to live a comfortable life, but as Greg said, not every job is a $25 job.
Hey, Dan, you'll have the last comment here, then we're going to have one more question you're all going to respond to, and then it's candidate's choice.
Thank you, everybody, for your input here. Not much left to say. There's some good stuff here that was in front of me. I will highlight a couple of things here. I do agree that the cost of living is going to be the way to tackle this problem. Rather than upping the pay, we need to see about ways in which we can make living in our community more affordable. And what others have said as well, I also recognize that there are different kinds of jobs that are there. Not every job is a career job. There are career jobs and there are side jobs, right? And to that end, as Greg mentioned, get forward in your career. And I mentioned it earlier, the Reconnect program at TC3, I'm a big proponent of that. I like that program a lot. So from a personal story here, I'm on the Village of Dryden Board of Trustees, and we had to choose during COVID when we had runaway inflation, what to do for our employees. And we chose to, out of schedule with the employment contracts, to go ahead and give employees a pay increase. We valued them, and that's the way an employer should value their employees. We valued them, wanted to help them keep their lives and livelihood. And we were glad we did that because we saved the cost of the turnover.
Thank you very much. Your third question is a timely one. It's one based on the idea that people want to see governments work and work with each other. So your third question is, how would you work to support greater collaboration between county and municipal levels of government? And why don't let's pick somewhere to start. Let's start with Mr. Hunt, and we'll go this way.
Oh, wow.
You're the only one wearing a hat. That's why I chose you because you're the only one wearing a hat.
Okay, there we go. So, county and city collaboration. There's already a number of committees on the county legislature that are intergovernmental or try to work with the city. There are liaisons that go from the city to various parts of the county, like TCAT and so on. But I think more targeted communication needs to happen earlier, information sharing, and most recently this, the Code Blue and Navigation Hub fiasco that just happened. The details should have been discussed earlier in the year. or explored in more depth. Somebody should have really looked into what was going to happen before it's a month before Code Blue really needs to be in effect. So there's a little bit of a failure, certainly in the past. But, you know, the city police cooperate with the sheriff, the fire, and the ambulance, and rapid response stuff are all collaborative efforts. So there's a lot of cooperation already, but it's could be improved.
And this is not meant to be limited to the city of Ithaca, right? It's the county and all other municipalities, or multiple municipalities in our communities. Yes, Michelle?
So I worked for the town of Ulysses for years, and during that time I was able to have a lot of conversations with colleagues from across the state. And what I gleaned from those conversations was that local government employees are pretty lucky to work in Tompkins County specifically relative to the rest of the state. And that has to do with the many ways in which the county already supports local government. So, but there's always room for improvement, of course. So this, you know, when it comes to ways that the county already provides support, it's a lot of data. There's a lot of data that is shared with local government that's very useful for local government to use technical assistance and other forms of communication. So my specific suggestion for this question is that at this point, there's many different realms of local government that are meeting countywide, like the clerks meet countywide, highway superintendents meet countywide, and planning professionals meet countywide. But municipal finance professionals do not meet countywide, and I think that there's a really good opportunity for the county to take leadership in organizing something like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, like before, I want to talk about what we already have, because I really think this is a super special community we live in. The county already has the Tompkins County Council of Governments, the TCCOG, and they meet in a monthly forum, and that includes city, town, and village level of government already, right? So they coordinate on really important things like housing, infrastructure, emergency services, and climate. And so this is all about how can we leverage what we have, throw more support that way instead of reinventing the wheel and starting something else and making everything more difficult to navigate. This forum has the opportunity to really leverage, like Michelle was saying, leverage technology, use data, look for gaps, and look for any overlaps where we can save money and increase efficiencies. Like we can share staff across these different levels of government. We can do bulk buying and joint grants. So again, there's a lot of opportunities to look at what we already have, a lot more opportunities for collaboration. And by the way, when we collaborate as one large entity, we are much more attractive when we go to apply for outside money. And that's what we want in this county. We want to fund all these wonderful idealistic things. Believe me, I'm a social worker, I'm all about it. We need to get money coming in from state, federal grants, right? So if we apply for most, okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Christine. Yeah. Randy.
One thing I've learned over the last almost 4 years in the legislature is the county does a lot. And we're already doing a lot of collaboration in a lot of areas. Human resources is an example. A lot of HR support to all the municipalities where they can do job postings, those types of things. Training, a lot of training involved. But I think there's areas where collaboration hasn't happened. It's happened in ways, for example, the Ithaca Youth Bureau is managing recreational activities. The county's participating, paying some of those funds. The city of Ithaca is as well, and the municipalities that use it based on the number of kids that are using these programs. But the collaboration related to mental health needs big improvement in my mind, and there has been some improvement with our whole health department and putting help in the schools. The reimbursement rates for these professionals going to schools is a higher rate, by the way. So that's something we should really be targeting in my mind. But I think that there's not enough communication, collaboration with the recreational departments and those departments in the schools and what's going on in the county and what we're doing in our youth services. And I think so many kids are being left out of the opportunity or the access to all these things. And that's really what has to happen. We need to really be supporting these all these activities that, as you mentioned, Tompkins County has hundreds of opportunities for for our youth, and too many of them, especially marginalized kids, are not getting it.
Thanks very much, Rachel.
So the success of any collaboration is going to be based on the quality of the relationship, and forming professional, respectful, and communicative relationships with members of other levels of government is essential to creating a culture where the county is effective and also seen as a trustworthy partner. So during campaigning, I've met with the town supervisors and mayor of the towns and village I hope to represent, so that I can begin to understand the issues at both the local and county level that are most pressing. And as part of these meetings, I've asked what the county can do better to support their municipality. And this has helped me understand what issues I need to educate myself on so I can be better prepared to represent their interests at the county level, whether that's regarding EMS or housing. Randy actually shared with me that he sends his town and village boards meeting notes and summaries from the legislature meetings, which I think is a really good idea, and I would also hope to do, because that would facilitate the flow of information and allows for a regular point of contact between the towns, the village, and the county. And although my district doesn't cover the city of Ithaca, I know that the county and city also work closely on many issues, so I hope to build relationships with members of the city government similar to the ones I've started in my local municipalities. And overall, even if we don't agree on everything, if there's free-flowing communication between levels of government, then we can have a collaborative and productive relationship built on mutual trust and respect.
Thank you. Some of you may recall or know from history, we used to have a county board of supervisors, not a county legislature. It was a whole different model. But each level of government has specific roles. So the coordination is going to be really important to make sure we manage that. Travis.
So when I read this question, I really think about electeds in city and county administration. And it is a relationship. And relationships have all these components to it. And every few years, there's new people that come to the county, there's new people that come out to the city. But one of the things that we constantly do is hold on to past grudges, hold on to issues from 10 years ago. I think that we really have to work together. I worked for the city for 26 years, and I've had to work with a lot of folks from Common Council in order to pass budgets and get things done for my community center. And you build those relationships. And you have to let things go. You have to move forward. You have to build trust. Talked about the Burger King fiasco. If we had a Cold Blue fiasco, if we had trust, if we had relationships, we can avoid so much of that. And we can offer each other grace. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people come to the table late. Sometimes people don't do their due diligence. Sometimes people don't understand the other's responsibilities and what they have to do. But if you have grace, if you have trust, and you have a relationship, you can circumvent a lot of that stuff. And I think that people need to meet on a regular basis from the county, like city reps and county reps that represent the same areas. They need to meet on a regular basis. They need to talk about the things that affect each one of them so that they can move forward in sync.
Thank you. Veronica.
I would strongly second everything that Rachel said about relationships and everything that Travis just said about relationships. And in fact, one specific thing, a regular county and city meeting, just informal to talk will help a lot, I think. I think that we do a lot of, we do have some of these structures. We have some, one-on-one relationships between various people in the county, various people in the city. I'm also kind of city focused because I live there. And we do a lot of talking in our own rooms and in public meetings about things where maybe the other party isn't there to chat and share information or whatever because of the meeting structure. Some of county people and Cornell people have this quarterly meeting like this that I think is helpful, even when there's no huge big issue to discuss. Just having the personal relationships is nice. And now instead of Cornell being some abstract entity, I can, for instance, see Susan Riley out in the world and go, oh, hey, this is a person I know. I also think that, I guess I said I'm focused on the city, but it is helpful, I think, maybe to encourage us to build, to show up to meetings of other municipalities and things. For instance, I had coffee with Rachel the other day, thank you, and she happens to have recently been at a Trumansburg budget hearing where they mentioned county things. I watched it, learned a lot, wouldn't have otherwise.
Good, thank you so much. Iris.
Yeah, a lot of great points have been raised. I think just in running this campaign, I've learned a lot about the different relationships, what's there and what isn't there. Talking with a friend who's on the school board for Ithaca City Schools, and she said, there's really not an interaction between the county and the city's school. And I imagine that's true with the other districts as well in the county. And that's an example of an opportunity, like harkening back to the question 1 and Deborah's answer or discussion about the Cornell question and how much they're taxed and what they're paying. I mean, the school districts are in the same position where they're looking at, we're not getting a fair share to cover our students. Why isn't there more interaction and discussion? I think that's a great opportunity for us to be on the same page. I think also ideas around zoning reform, whether that's the city, and I know we have a candidate's choice question around zoning reform, but the city's also looking at that. We should be coordinating and discussing. And I was recently talking with our state assembly member, and she had some great ideas about how we could also support housing policy. So I think we need to be looking at all the levels, the layers of government. And then just finally, something Christy raised around bundling projects and kind of working together with multiple municipalities. Another issue that I think is really important. I looked at the climate projects and met with some of the climate sustainability folks, and there isn't a lot of bundling right now, and I think that would be a way to attract and win better value for our projects, but also to coordinate and support localities that don't have their own procurement departments, for example.
Thank you. Adam.
So a lot has been said about working with the Common Council, and I've been in close communication with my counterpart running for Ward 4, Robin Trumbull. I hope and I'm looking forward to building and strengthening my relations with current members of the council once I'm elected. But also, I'm hoping to build relationships with representatives from other municipalities as well. At the end of the day, this is the county legislature. I also really like what Veronica said about working with Cornell University. In many ways, it almost functions as its own government. It is the largest institution in this county, and it is the largest portion of my district, frankly. What they do really impacts what happens in college town politics. I think a big example of this is the increase in the freshman class of 2029, around 500 new students. And over time, those students are going to be moving out of student housing into housing that I'm not certain there is a supply for currently. So a big issue right now is to try and make sure that there is such a supply and to do so that we don't have an increase in rent prices.
A lot of opportunity to make these collaborations relational rather than transactional, and the best way to get to build those relationships is when there isn't an emergency or an urgent need, or you lay down that sort of historical connection is really important. Judith.
One of the things I've learned from walking around and talking to people is when people have issues, they don't assign the issue to a particular municipality, right?
Yeah.
Like they have an issue and they want people to solve it, and as somebody who represents them, I want to try to help solve it. One of the issues that's really important to me is our schools. I have 3 kids in the local schools. 2 years ago, we voted down the school budget. We voted down the school budget not because people didn't support the teachers and not because the school is spending lavishly. I mean, our teachers are currently working without a contract because we can't afford to pay them enough. They voted it down because they were seeing double-digit increases in their school property taxes year over year over year. The school levy was not going up by double digits every year. It was going up a lot, but not double digits. And I think we really need to look at the county's role and how we're assigning school property taxes and other forms of property taxes. When we change our assessments for some properties, residences, we raise them, and we don't have raises in commercial properties, that means people living in homes and rental properties in Fall Creek are going to see huge increases in property taxes. When the IDA gives a property tax abatement to a new residential property, we're bringing in new kids who are going to go to those schools, and we have to pay for that, but we're not bringing in the tax base to support it. So the county really needs to recognize that role, and really work with all of those different organizations to fix the problem.
It's interesting to think that the only budget that citizens or residents, I should say, have a vote in is the school budget, right? They don't vote on the county budget. Imagine if they did, what that would look like. That's why this conversation and your connection to your elected representatives is so important. Sean.
Thank you. Being a legislator is all about relationships, and collaboration is absolutely essential. The one thing that I appreciate about local government is that it's very nonpartisan. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, we're all trying to do the same things up here. We're trying to have safe schools, safe communities, good social services. And, you know, I think that's the thing that we really try and focus on. As far as being a legislator, on any given day, you might speak with someone on the town board, someone on the city council. I might give Randy a call, I might give Mike Sigler a call. Like, it is constant communication, and I think that's what's made us so successful in the past. The one thing that I really appreciate that we've done is, I know I'm part of the town of Ithaca, and we actually go to their meetings and we report out things that we're doing on the county level, and there's a Q&A. We also invite town of Ithaca officials, city of Ithaca, all of our municipalities to come in and report to the legislature so that the legislators have a chance to have that back and forth. There are a lot of things that we're working on with municipalities. I just want to give a few of those examples. The rapid response for EMS, that's one thing over the next year that we're really going to have to hammer out. That's a really important initiative. Infrastructure, we know that wastewater, drinking water, roadways, those are serious concerns. Can I go for 2 more? Yep. Okay. Housing and homelessness, public safety, TCAT, and our shared services. Those are things that we have to keep collaborating on.
A lot there to build on, yeah. Deborah.
Thank you. Well, obviously, relationships is the theme. I personally recommend being married to the mayor of the village you represent. But we definitely need more direct and proactive communication between and among electeds at every level of local government. I've had opportunities very recently to chat with alderpersons Clyde Letterman, Margarita Fabrizio, with Lansing Town Supervisor Ruth Groff about issues of shared interest. Personal conversations are key. It's just easier to share, frankly, what your viewpoints and disagreements are and to understand each other's concerns much better that way. I think we could have avoided this recent misunderstanding with the Navigation Hub and Burger King if electeds had been communicating about this issue from the get-go rather than us waiting until our admin staff had reached a tentative agreement and then came to us and said, hey, approve this. So moving forward, I will work to establish closer relationships with the new alderpersons, and I'm really looking forward to working with the new legislators. I will have to establish a better relationship with the town of Ithaca supervisor and their board, and I also think it would be productive to consider creating informal working groups of electeds that brainstorm solutions to some of the issues we have to address together.
You are people that are used to going to meetings, and if you're saying you want more meetings, that's that.
Well,
really,
honestly, I don't.
Let me finish my thought. You have a skill set there, and it works, and you have a sort of tilt in that position. Let's use your skills, let's use those assets to make those things happen. Mike.
Well, the old adage is 90% of life is showing up, and I think that's the key to this job. I mean, I pride myself on getting to as many things as humanly possible, because it is really about showing up. I mean, I'm looking at my town board. I go, I give a monthly report, I give them the lay of the land. They ask questions. I don't want anything that they hear being taken by surprise, basically. When it came to rapid medical response, Roared Hart up in Trumansburg was pushing that very heavily. Met with him, got his ideas on it. That's the kind of meeting you need. And it goes something about what Iris said too. You know, how many people talk to their superintendents. Public hearing last week. I'm sitting right next to my superintendent. We got to talk. So that's what it is. It's about showing up. Marty Stallone. It goes beyond municipalities. Meeting with him about our mental health stabilization unit, the detox center. What's holding that up? I've been endorsed by the Building and Trades, the UAW, the IBEW, the Glazers, Tompkins County Sheriff's Deputies, the Tompkins County Corrections. And why? Because I call them. I show up at their things, and I understand that I need to talk to them to see where they're coming from, where they think the county's going, what direction they think it should be in. Because that's what this is all about. It's all about the people in your towns and your constituents. So far, I've been to 700 doors, and that's how you get to know your community and what their concerns are.
Thanks, Mike. James Perkins' response to this question is to create a formal meeting place and time for conversations between county and municipal leaders. identify and prioritize shared challenges, focus on projects where there's a clear benefit for all parties, and share services like food pantries. Kind of reiterating, here's some very well reinforced themes.
Okay. As we've seen, there's a couple of themes going around here, and I endorse both of them. One is relationships, and the other is using what has already been established. I think you mentioned it earlier. Okay. Using what's already been established and enhancing that there, and leveraging that to the fullest extent we can, rather than reinventing the wheel. But relationships are important. I would continue Mike Lane's standing practice of attending the board meetings for the local municipalities. That's the Village of Dryden, the Village of Freeville, and the Town of Dryden. Face-to-face communication is very important. An example I just had Saturday, a person showed up in my driveway and said, Dan, can we talk? It was about a village issue, but it wasn't a village person. And the ability to stand there and just talk with somebody face-to-face, it was key. And I think it went a long ways to resolving the issue that this person had. In terms of collaboration, the Village of Dryden and the Town of Dryden have as an example, have a project going right now for sidewalks on the north side of the village. It's kind of a mangled property line up there in terms of what's in the village and what's in the town. We worked together. We applied for and received a $4.5 million grant to put in those sidewalks. So we're looking forward, and that's an 80-20 grant. So the municipalities will be hooking up 20%, but we're looking forward to working with the town on that.
Thank you.
Almost at the end again. Best place to be.
I'm going to start with
because everyone has done. Because everyone has said basically what I want to say, anyways. So collaboration between the county and municipalities. Certainly, when it comes to collaboration between the county and the city, I think that's a well-established relationship. That's been going on for years. But county government was really never set up and designed to be a collaborative process between local governments, the towns and villages, and the county. The county government was set up for a completely separate purpose. So relationships are, in fact, the key to this. But one of the things that I want to speak to is I want to speak to the relationship to the issue that most villages have in Tompkins County that had police departments. Most villages that have police departments, like the Village of Dryden, basically are a police department with a few additional services. When you look at the budget, it's very expensive to maintain police services, but they're critical to law enforcement in the county. They act in a collaborative way with the state police and with the county sheriff's department. What I would like to see the county do in some way, and maybe that would involve the distribution of a portion of the sales tax money, but I'm not sure, is for them to pay a contract on an annual basis to the police departments that exist in Cuba Heights, the Village of Dryden, Village of Groton, and Trumansburg, to help them offset the costs that they have when they're operating outside of the village, which is a great deal of the time. They're all deputy sheriffs, but they don't get paid for that in any way. And all of that cost is borne by the local people in the villages.
We're at time now, Tom, so I'm going to...
Okay, I'm just going to say that, but that's a problem because Dan just mentioned the fact that they had an increase in the cost of government, and that was a 50% increase in the cost of our taxes in the Village of Dryden in the last 3 years. And most people can't afford that continued increase in costs.
Greg, you have the last word on this question, then we're going to go to candidate's choice. And I want to thank the people in the audience for being here through the first hour and a half. We're here until 2 o'clock. We also are engaged in participating with folks who are on the Chamber's YouTube channel. We want to recognize and thank them as well.
All right, well, I think we have a strong role to be the chief convener, collaborator, and then also the source for technical data and technical support. I think if we understood the way that the county's already collaborating with municipalities and we highlighted that more, you would see that we actually do a really good job. I just wrote down quickly: economic development, emergency response, assessment, IT, finance, our clerk, planning department, highway, transportation, youth services are just a few ways that the county is already collaborating with municipalities. I think when it comes back to relationships, we need to check egos at the door, and we need to stay results focused. There's a lot of like, well, this is my town, that's my town. It's like, well, just connect the sewer and get along, you know? Like, come on, friends. So I think those type of things are really important for us to play a role. I think the other way is we continue to leverage county dollars at the local municipal level so that they can attract larger and bigger grants. We have things like the Housing Affordability and Supportive Infrastructure Grant. We have Natural Infrastructure Grant. We've got Community Celebrations Grant. There's several ways that we take county dollars, put them back into the municipalities that allow them to then get, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars back to their municipalities. We also need to be a planning resource. We have an incredible planning department, a robust planning department. We need to be helping with planning and zoning board training, right? Those are lay positions that really need to understand the task they have at hand. And then also, I think the biggest issue of the day coming up the next year is going to be how we navigate emergency response across the county. And that's going to be one of those check your egos at the door moments.
Thank you very much. I think that's an incredible list that I would wager most people in the audience do parts of it or pieces of it, but not the overall package. And I think it's really important to get that word out because you have the experience and the track record of doing really well as you being the county. Okay, so, yes.
Are we doing questions?
We're doing one more candidates round of questions. And then, yes. So, interesting questions from the audience, which means these are even going to be, your responses to these are even going to be faster so we can save time for that. So there are 4 questions, and I'll start by asking who...
Are there 5 questions?
There are 5 questions. Yeah, there are 5 questions. Thank you. You're still with us, that was a test. By raising your hand here, who would like to respond to question 1? Okay, remember who you are. We're going to go in order, starting with Judith. I'll read the question, and then each one of you can respond to question 1. We'll do likewise with 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I know there are 5 questions. To encourage the creation of accessory dwelling units, ADUs, 2 weeks ago, the Albany County Legislature unanimously passed a tax break for property owners who construct an ADU by exempting any tax assessment increase caused by such improvement when calculating county property tax bills for the first 5 years, and then gradually reduce the exemption for another 5 years. Given that many municipalities have legalized the creation of these ADUs in many zones, would you support a similar move by Tompkins County to exempt increases in value from the owner's county tax levy calculation?
Thank you. I know a lot of people, I've looked at listservs, people are having a hard time finding a place to rent, they're having a hard time finding a place to buy so that they can stay in the area. And ADUs have been a really hot topic in the city of Ithaca. But I think we have to be really clear-eyed about the costs that come with this kind of development. When you put in ADUs, you're losing green space, you're losing wildlife, right? You're potentially increasing flood risks because you're reducing the amount of area where the water can infiltrate into the ground. And if we start to incentivize the development with tax rebates, we're also costing everybody else more money when we bring more people into the city. At the county level, I think we have better options. Right? The city has limited space, the county has a lot more space, and I'm really looking forward to question number 3, Governor Hochul's Move in New York program. I think that developing neighborhoods outside the city that are attractive to families, attractive to young people, attractive to people looking for an affordable place that's still on a transit line could really help to alleviate some of our housing problems, give people places to live that are still, close to town, still a great place to live, have shared green spaces, and a lot more attractive to the people looking for places now.
Thank you. Who else wanted number 1? Greg.
Yeah, as much as I'm chomping at the bit for 2 and 3, I think it's important to understand what the county's role is in land use, and there is none. We don't have it, right? That's down at the local municipal level. But I think when it comes to taxes, that is a role that we can play. I think we should phase in new taxes. I absolutely am 100% a believer you get what you incent. If you look at our low-income housing and what we've done there, we've done a great job. If you look at some other projects in the city around density, we've done a great job there. What we're doing, though, is we're phasing in new taxes. We're not foregoing taxes, we're just phasing in new taxes. I don't like the idea of no tax for 5 years. I would rather see it similar to a pilot where over 5 years it's a 20% clip at a time, and that would get us to full market rate within 5 years. But I do think that there needs to be some incentive. I think density where density makes sense, which is why ADUs are there, because we don't want to knock down a bunch of single-family homes for triplexes and multi-unit, big buildings. We want to keep the green space. We want to keep the character of a neighborhood. And being able to convert a garage into an apartment is an affordable way to continue to create density because that's what we need. And so I think we would be At a loss, though, if we didn't encourage our school and city and local municipal partners to play a role in that, because if you look at your tax bill, your property tax bill, the county is the smallest portion, right? We need the cities, or the city, the towns, and also the school boards to get on board with something like this for actually, I think, to be an effective strategy.
Thanks. Who else wanted number one? John did. John.
My short answer is yes. But my only question is, I know that the city ADU legislation that was passed allows intergenerational use as well as renting out the apartment or the new building to someone new. And I think maybe the tax structure for that should be different. If you're just building it for an in-law or whatever, I think then you should probably be closer to paying tax. But if you're creating something new for people to move into, then I agree with the plan.
Thank you. Others for number one? We had one other one over here, I think. Travis, did you want one or no?
I mean, I do, but I really want four.
It's like when I look at the dessert menu, I want the ice cream and the cake on the pie, so I put the ice cream on the pie. Okay. Then let's go to number two. The creation of new market rate owner-occupied housing, whether detached, townhome, duplex, or condominium, has been anemic for the past 2 decades. Control a tight inventory of available for sales homes and increasing values. What strategies would you propose for the county to partner with local municipalities, developers, and lenders to begin to address this? And who wants to answer number two? Go to Mike and then we'll go to Randy.
So I think the best thing you can do is actually more of these planned communities idea. I mean, if you build the road, you build the sewer, you build the electric, what you want to do is you want to take the risk out of building buildings. And that's not what's going on right now. I mean, in Lansing at the height, I mean, the reason I wanted this question, this is the one I think that could impact Lansing the most. You want to take the risk out of building these kind of homes. At its height, I think it was about $400 a square foot to build a house. I mean, can you imagine that 1,000 square foot house going for $400,000? We absolutely have to lower the risk for builders to go in there and build. And if you look at the past and how this has worked, you look at something like Long Island after World War II. They built the roads, they built the infrastructure, and then you were able to bring the housing in because then the developer said, okay, I have my site is all ready to go. And this has already been through zoning. So a lot of that planning has already been done. So that's where I think we can go in this direction.
Thanks, Mike. Randy.
I agree with that. The cost of building is $300 to $500 per square foot. So the average person, there's no way they can afford to build a house, let alone buy it. I've been part of a manufactured home working group for the past 3 years. A few people from Cornell and other people have been part of that group. I think that manufactured housing is where we need to be really focused. It's so much less expensive to build manufactured homes, about $200 a square foot, maybe up to $250 for something that's a little nicer. But we need to have land-ready spots for that infrastructure. In the towns I live in, Newfield and Enfield, the infrastructure is not necessarily there, but there are incentives that can be given to farmers. So just right now, if a farmer sells his land, they're going to pay taxes, higher taxes for selling the land for residential use. That could be eliminated in some way. But I think they really have to look at manufactured homes. We have 1,800 manufactured homes in Tompkins County now. Many of them are over 30, 40 years old. And it's very expensive, and those are typically people on fixed incomes. The cost of heat in the electric of those units is exorbitant because they're not well made. So I think that there's a lot of focus on that. I think that you can put, like I know Ithaca Housing did in Trumansburg, but you can do the same thing with a home ownership where people can own a piece of that.
You said it so very well for the next question. Governor Hochul has recently announced the program Move in New York in hopes of adding additional housing units that are modular or manufactured homes. To qualify, communities must commit to building a minimum of 10 homes on land free of any zoning restrictions and make them available to buyers who meet income requirements. Would you be in support of the county partnering with municipalities to make land available and affordable for this type of program? Who wants to say yes or no to this? We'll start here and go this way. Iris and then Dan.
So building off of Randy's remarks, I was also learning about this working group from one of your colleagues recently, and I think it's a really important way to create opportunities for generational wealth for people. The challenge here is whether the manufactured homes themselves are treated as real property or personal property. So if they're treated as real property, then there's tax assessments, but then that can increase in value over time. But when they're treated as personal property, they decrease in value over time, so that people are not building generational wealth and are in fact losing money. So I think it would need to be built in a very strategic and thoughtful way to make sure that they would fall into that classification. Just looking at the Move in New York program, those are 3-bedroom homes, the test ones they just did, 3-bedroom, 1,500 square foot homes. They cost about $250,000 to build. Our median home sale price in the county was over $400,000, and these would be subsidized too. So it's a really great way to make these kinds of homes available. They're also not just for starter homes, but I think we have a lot of folks who have kind of aged out of their 5-bedroom house, like in my district, and maybe want to live in a 1-level house that's really nice and is, you know, climate resilient and, you know, airtight and has good heat system, right? Has a heat pump and all of that. So this could be an option for a lot of people who maybe want to downsize but still stay in the community that they love.
Thank you very much. Who else? Dan.
These questions all kind of dovetail into one another as we go along here. I saw this and I said that this is something I can really endorse. Housing is a big deal. As Mike stated and Randy stated, preparing the plot is important. And that's, I think, where the county can help, okay? We do the planning that Greg mentioned. We have the Housing and Supportive Infrastructure Grant that can go out to the municipalities to do the research, to apply for grants for those projects. So that's how the county can help there. In terms of the housing itself, I have a friend who's a fellow scoutmaster that is in this business, and I understand the construction as he's described it to me. And it's good because there are some real big pros to putting that in a factory environment versus doing it on site. And I won't take tons of time on it going through that list. In a similar fashion, another program that I am proud to have been supporting for several years on the village board in Dryden is the Community Development Block Grant. So these all kind of go together that allow homeowners to get into affordable situations, or in the case of CDBG, repair their houses and then ultimately wind up keeping them.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wanted in on this? Okay, we have 2 remaining questions. We'll try to save some time for questions from the audience as well. So number 4, what ideas do you have to maintain social service programs that serve the needs of Tompkins County's most vulnerable populations while minimizing the financial impact to the community? So an easy and simple. And let's start this way first. So we'll go Rachel and Christine Street across that way.
So, as I touched on earlier, the most effective way for us to serve the needs of our most vulnerable neighbors is to focus on upstream interventions that allow people to lift themselves out of poverty instead of solely focusing on the immediate needs of people in crisis. So 2 ideas at this point would be living wage and also a thoughtful and targeted guaranteed income program. So living wage, which we discussed, is what people need to cover their basic needs without relying on public assistance. And so if your wages are right at the level of living wage, you'll be spending the money on basic needs, housing, transportation, food, childcare, and likely all that money is staying local, it's being spent locally and will bolster the local economy. This then both increases revenue locally and decreases the need for more expensive forms of assistance. And second, I recently attended a presentation here sharing the results of the Ithaca Guaranteed Income Project. This grant-funded pilot program gave $450 a month for 12 months to low-income caregivers in Ithaca. And as in many other pilot programs around the country, recipients use payments to pay bills on time, avoid eviction, afford necessities like food, clothing, school supplies, pay down debt, build small savings, and are more likely to be employed at the end of the program because they can better afford childcare and transportation. So there's a moral and an economic argument for these programs. It cannot be overstated how much more expensive it is to only focus on managing the needs of people in crisis. This approach does not serve our neighbors, it prolongs suffering, and I believe for the people better.
Thank you very much. Christy, I think is next up.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. So I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for decades. I was a social worker employed by this county for a number of years. So I feel like this question was literally written for me. And of course I have a ton I could say, but I want to first of all just let everybody know that mandates from Albany require us to spend money on really big social service programs. So things like Medicaid, child welfare, SNAP. These things get paid for, we have to pay for them. What we're talking about are the budgetary fall and where we're going to have to focus on saving money and looking at cuts. And when we have to do this, we have to look at, first of all, we cannot fund everything, but we absolutely have to fund the right things. And that's what we need to do as a county. That's where we need to focus our energies. In my current life, I'm a manager for a huge telehealth company. We provide mental health services, primarily Medicaid recipients. It is my job. I am literally required to make sure we use data to assess the efficacy of our programs, track these symptoms. Are they reducing? Where are we not functioning well? If we didn't do this, we would not survive as a private entity. I want to bring all of that training to Tompkins County because when I was a social worker here, I can tell you, I ran around a lot of fragmentation and we need to do a better job streamlining. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? On this one, across the table this way. Deborah, you're next, and then Shauna.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that the need in our community is far greater than our resources, and it's going to just increase in the years that come up. So we have to be really practical. Who do we help? How much do we help? As Christy said, we have mandated programs and services. We have no choice. We have to pay for those, and taxpayers have to pay for those. But then we have our unhoused population problem, which is huge. We have more than one unhoused population. We have people who are temporarily unhoused due to circumstances, like job loss, incarceration, domestic violence. They can be helped more quickly and easily because all they need is housing. So we should be helping them first with our limited resources, and then we can work our way into helping the populations that need ever-increasing levels of supportive services because of their youth and inexperience or the substance abuse and mental illness problems that make their transition to housing so difficult. The county also provides funding to a plethora of nonprofit organizations that provide social services and programs to various vulnerable populations in our community. I would urge those organizations to consolidate or at least try to collaborate to reduce the duplication of effort and overhead that increases costs that must be borne by the county and private donors. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Shauna.
Thank you. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I know that you wrote in the question how to maintain social services and how to minimize financial impact. But with the situation that we're in, we know that SNAP benefits are going to be cut in 2026. We know that Medicaid is going to be cut in 2027, and my assumption is that at some point the county is going to have to pick up the tab for many of these services so that people don't go hungry, kids don't go hungry, and so that people have insurance and we're able to take care of their needs. With that being said, I think right now is the perfect time for us to start looking at data and metrics for those agencies that we currently support. Are they doing things that make financial sense? Also, I know intervention, prevention, early access, there are things that we can do as a community that we can invest early so that people aren't taking ambulances every time they've stubbed their toe up to Med. We know that that doesn't work and it costs a lot of money. The other thing that, as my colleagues have mentioned, there are a lot of federal pass-throughs, there are a lot of investments that we make in the community, and at this point we have a very robust fund balance that we have saved for a very long time at the tune of around 40 million. This unfortunately might be the time that we have to dip into that.
Right, the rainy day fund.
The rainy day fund, we're almost here.
In the typhoon that we're in.
Yeah.
Other folks that want this question. Travis.
So I think the county has an opportunity to take the lead on this and bring folks together that provide these services. So many entities, so many organizations, nonprofits, they operate in these silos, and we end up duplicating work, we end up funding things that many of us know that haven't proven to work, but it's such a good idea, but the practice of it isn't working. We keep funding it anyways because we don't want to be on the hook for not funding it. But if we can bring people together in a space, and we can look at what services that we offer. Ithaca's very service rich. And we can stop having people fighting over these little pockets of money to keep their funding going. And we can figure out ways to support each other by actually doing the work collaboratively. So that this group is doing this in conjunction with this group. This group is tackling this. Social services, DSS is working with everybody to ensure that people are getting into housing so that maybe we don't need such a big shelter. Maybe we don't have to provide the type of THA services that we provide. So I remember in 2018, when there was a study that Laura Grillo-Galtman shared with me that 30% of the people eligible in this county were actually getting SNAP benefits, which means 70% aren't. If 75% of those folks had been getting those benefits, $20 million of additional money would have been generated in this community. So there's opportunities to work collaboratively together and create more opportunities to take care of folks. Some programs that people want to hold on to won't exist any longer because they actually don't work in 2025. You're looking at me, Joseph.
I'm looking at you. Thanks, so we have one last question. We have a little bit more time, but I also want to underline that each person here I've experienced as very open and accessible to constituencies from the places that they represent. This is not your one and only chance to ask a question. The folks really do want to hear from you, not just because they want to be elected, but because they want to be good public servants. I think that's universal. We have a real strong social capital asset in our community. Yes, but that's where we are. So here's the last question. How will you make sure underrepresented voices are heard in county decisions? So that's why I wanted to start that question with this. Let's begin with Adam, and we'll go this way.
So with basically all of my answers, at least once mentioned Cornell and student, and I'm going to be nothing but consistent with this. You couldn't tell, I'm a recent college grad. I graduated from Cornell in 2025, and I started my campaign with a bachelor's in environmental sustainability. During my time at the university, I represented the student body as a whole on various shared governance boards. So I got a very good understanding of what they want and the issues they face. And a big one has to be the fact that there isn't really much, I guess, outreach done to them at a county level, but also they just don't really have much of an understanding of the county government to begin with. And that makes a lot of sense. They're a hard group to reach out to. But it's important that we do so because they're around 30% of our county's population. It also doesn't help that our county median age is around 33. It's basically way down by the student population. But our county legislature hasn't always reflected that. That's part of one of the reasons I'm running. I found that students, like I said, don't really understand it, but once you start talking to them, they kind of start, I guess, informing you on their issues. And as a result, you kind of get a better understanding yourself of how our governance works and where we've had failures. So I guess I'd like to tell a little bit of a story that I have that started when I was doing signature collection. I talked with a student who was living on, I believe, Linden Avenue. And they had an issue with their recycling.
I'm going to ask you to hold on to your story because we really are very tight for time, and I want to make sure everyone responds to all this. And I also just have for you a date, right? Because who knows when election day is? November 4th. And you can still register to vote if you haven't registered. And there's early voting, so check the Board of Elections, another service provided by the county.
October 25th.
October 25th is
First
the
day
answer.
for early voting.
All right, well, thank you for hanging on to that story. Come in this way, oh no, did I say this way? That way, I said that way.
Oh, so you
I
said
think
that.
it's you.
Sorry, I
changed
said that. Great. Thank you. So how will you make sure underrepresented voices are heard in county decisions? I think that this is a really good and fundamental question. I mean, all the questions were good, but so much flows from whose voices are heard and what input we get. And I think that we, at the county legislatures, do spend a lot of time talking about and debating things that we don't actually know much about at all. Because, I mean, this isn't exactly next year's legislature, but it's very similar. 16 people. We are homogenous in various ways, as Adam alluded to, and even 16 unique
entire lives and personal experience does not cover, even if we were all different, the breadth of issues and situations that we've all brought up in response to various questions here. So I think I kind of like our answers to partnering with municipalities. We need to create structures that naturally facilitate relationships and interactions. And I don't know what all that looks like, but if that could be something that outlasts any specific individual, if I could change one thing, that's what I want to focus on.
Thank you. Who else wants to? Michelle?
What Veronica was just saying really dovetails into what I was going to say for this question, which is that it's really about shifting the culture of governance and creating space for dialogue and for self-determination and dignity for the people who are underrepresented. So these decisions aren't made in a vacuum, and the people who will be most impacted by them are invited to the conversation. Public comment period during county legislature, that's not dialogue. There's just a one-way street there. So how do we really find ways to create spaces for dialogue for people who are underrepresented? So not a side note, but I think the health of a democracy can be judged by the quality of life, the quality of life of people who are most oppressed by its systems. And so this really is about a shift in the culture of governance. In the last 30 seconds that I have, I'll just point to a recent county survey that went out about the design for the center of government. And that went out to listservs and all of that. And I think it'd be really great to establish working relationships with the agencies and the organizations that work with underrepresented population to really ascertain how we would get feedback instead of just a survey over listserv.
Great, thank you. You're up, Tom.
Thank you very much. So, unrepresented voices. Most of Tompkins County is represented by one party. In the town of Dryden, which I represent, which hope to represent, the town board, the village board is all Democrats. It's not necessarily that that's a bad thing, that's politics. But the reality is that the people I speak with, the people that I've had conversations with, are concerned that their voices are not being heard. I'm an independent candidate, and I will represent all the people. You asked me what I would do to represent the underrepresented people, and that's what I would do, is that speak as an independent voice. I have life experiences, which perhaps a lot of people don't have. I've lived in the town of Dryden for 50 years, and I've taken care of a dying wife who had cancer. I've had drug issues in our family. I'm aware of the problems of housing in Tompkins County and in the town of Dryden, and I've been representing people who basically have not had a voice. I know that it's hard to believe, but when people who are not members of the same constituency come to speak at a town board meeting, they're often treated very poorly. They're not heard. They're not considered fairly. And that's something which is important to me. I represent people who have not been heard.
Thank you. Anyone else here for that question? Okay, we're like almost right at time. So I do think that I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being engaged. I want to thank you for stepping up and doing this on top of all of your other responsibilities, and also how seriously you each take it. Clearly it's important to you for very powerful reasons about your view of community and your role and how you can help your community. So I think I'm turning this over to Sarah next to do the closing.
Take a question. We still got 2 minutes.
Good question. All right, you got a question.
Great. Great. I'm in District 14. NYSEG is proposing steep rate hikes, specifically 18 to 22% increase in electric and gas, and 35 to 39% on base delivery charges, and closing the Ithaca walk-in office. If elected, what will you do to protect residents, ensure utility affordability, and maintain accessible and reliable services for all?
What 14 are you in? Existing 14 or old 14? New 14?
It's for, I'm
New
in
14.
town.
That's for Christy and Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go first because I am so angry about this. They got a rate hike last year. They're asking for another one. Like, the truth is that they have to go to the state of New York. New York has to approve it. Josh Riley, our rep at the federal level, thank goodness, he's an amazing guy, he's a lawyer, he is fighting for this. He's saying, we don't need this, we don't want this for all of these reasons. They are coming here to hear from us in the community about how these rate hikes are impacting us at a local level. And with all the other stuff that we've talked about here, with things becoming so affordable in Ithaca, we need to raise our voices, be loud and clear. This is a foreign-owned company. This is a public utility. Why does this even happen? Why is this even allowed to happen, first and foremost? But they really need to hear back from us. So thank you for bringing that up.
Michelle, did you want to know that?
Well, I hate to put my opponent in such a good position, but I think she nailed that. The one thing I'll point out is that there is a resource called the Public Service Commission, which is support that you could be getting from the state on this particular issue.
Hardly know much. One question, and thank you for being here. Thank the folks here for being involved in this panel. We really appreciate you making time for doing that. I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Sarah.
Can I just say something? Irene Weiser is not here today because she is in New York City testifying about the Public Service Commission and how it's disserving us.
Public service.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. So we want to thank the Public Library for the space. Thank you very much. The roundtable sponsors, BorgWarner, M&T Bank, and Rasa Spa, as well as all of you audience members that stuck through it, and all of you for coming. We really do